Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of K-TEIN. I am your host, Keobastein, with once again my good friend CommDao. Today, we are going to be looking at Superman, the Superman movie from James Gunn and whatnot. Going to be listening a little bit more from my partner since I have not seen the movie myself. But if anybody's been on the internet, they know it's been a very big talking point. But before we do that, calm down, my friend. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Just like I caught the movie yesterday, and just like I tested you, it's chicken soup for the soul. I feel like is a good way to summarize it. But I am aware of some of the criticism, and I'd be happy to talk about that as well. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. Also, if you are a James Gunn fan, like you're familiar with his style of filmmaking, I can't imagine anybody who's liked James Gunn's movies and being disappointed with this. I'm sure there are some, but I think it's like a surefire hit for you if you know what you're getting into.
I have not been familiar with James Gunn's work myself, but I heard he did a good job with Guardians of the Galaxy. And considering how the Guardians of the Galaxy were not, if anything, in people's radar until their movie, well, as we can see here, now we have Star-Lord showing up in Marvel Tokon as a titular character because people are adoring Star-Lord. Not only in Tokon, but in Marvel Avengers 3, you start off with playing Star-Lord as well and whatnot. So again, these almost no-name characters now became prolific thanks to James Gunn. And now, like you said, with Superman, who has been having a lot of, let's say, different interpretation and characterizations from Snyder making him one way to other incarnation having Superman a different way. But so many people seem to have a very universal thing of, oh, this guy gets Superman and whatnot. And apparently, I really want to know what is your feeling on one particular thing. I guess this is really punk rock. Like, are you familiar with punk rock yourself? Because I'm not fully familiar, but I'm aware that it's kind of a counter cultural to some extent. I guess a culture of not sticking to the status quo. Is that what they're going with that movie scene?
So, like, after watching it, it makes sense because there is like a specific scene where he's talking about it. Maybe I should start. Like the first time I saw the punk rock mention was when Kojima saw them. If people aren't familiar, Hideo Kojima,
He loves
your
his
solid
movies.
mastermind.
Oh my!
He loves his movies. His current big IP, Death Stranding 2, and whenever he tweets a lot about a movie, then kind of like his feelings about it. When he says, "I just watched a movie," like with Captain Marvel or the Marvels, and it's like a one-liner, then he didn't enjoy it. But it did seem like he enjoyed Superman, and he did allude to that fact of punk rock. But I don't know if it was like a mistranslation or something, but his tweet didn't make a whole lot of sense, right? And I'm not super versed in punk rock either, as far as like identity and stuff like that. I listen to punk music, like I don't know if this is controversial to say, but I like the Offspring or stuff like that. I don't know if they're too commercialized or mainstream, but there is that element of being against the establishment. Okay. And there is a scene between Lois and Clark where Lois talks about being able to be in a relationship with Clark because he's so optimistic, right? And her nature is to question everything, to be doubtful, in essence, to be a cynic, right? And you could imagine how beneficial that could be for a journalist. And there is like an extended trailer where you see an argument play out between Clark and Lois, where she is like legitimately grilling him for his actions of trying to be a do-gooder as Superman.
I
And
have seen some of those scenes, and I have seen some of that as a heart-to-heart talking point. And to be honest, as someone who just had a heart-to-heart with their significant other, basically with the fact of essentially who I can be as a person. I didn't see the scene, but I've seen enough videos of the review talking about how like eventually he's like one is in Lois' nature to question the thing that Clark is doing and whatnot. But as Clark also even explains to her, it's what I do, or like this is what I do, or rather,
Yeah,
no, like she basically is like, I understand what you're doing is right, but is it the moral right thing to do or legal right thing to do? And Clark is like, I not really care about the legality of the situation. I just don't want to see people get hurt. Which, to be fair,
yeah,
there is definitely some. I mean, because we even talked not too long ago about the idea of like either with censorship or how, like, I remember we talked about, with products coming out on our third episode about, the censorship of games and things, and we have said that we would like certain things cleaned up from storefronts, from the either very egregious games to sometimes just less than flattering games and whatnot.
yeah. All the
And
shovelware, all the AI slop, all this hentai waifu, whatever name stuff
yeah,
um,
so
that should not be on the eShop if of all the platforms, you know. But we acknowledge like there's a slippery slope. People who want to uh, proclaim that they're doing this for protection. That's not always the case, you know. So there is room for skepticism. Just going back to Lois and Clark real quick, there's like two or three exchanges that are happening. So like some of those scenes are interspersed with depending on what you are looking at, but the whole punk rock dialogue aspect is after the grilling, they're having another conversation, and Lois is just like wondering about their compatibility of the relationship itself. And Lois, by being a cynic, you know, and almost being like against government, because like that's a part of like punk rock being kind of like an anarchist, right? And she's telling Clark, it's like, it's in your nature to just trust people and to like see the good in everybody, right? And Superman's point is that where it might have been different in the past, where people were blindly naive and following everything, and Lois's stance of being a cynic to doubt and to question would be in the minority. Now it's flip flopped where everybody's a cynic, right? Everybody's skeptical. Everybody doesn't want to trust. So, in essence, when you are the optimist, that's like the role reversal of, hey, he is punk rock by doing this thing. I don't know if I explained that
no, no,
in
no,
the
no.
best
You
way.
actually kind of really explained it well. Because one, like, something I kept trying to tell one of my few other friends is like, one keeps saying, oh, prices have gone up, gaming is doing so well, or comic is doing well. Like, things are not what they used to be. And I keep telling people that things have peaks and valleys, but then also trends change. I mean, for example, let's look at the, I want to say the hero shooter. Well, no, how about it? Right now, even my fighting game side, if I can throw a little fighting game into this, we're getting a bunch of
Yeah,
tag fighting games now. Like, so many. From Tokon, 2SKO, Nin Impact, that
Invincible
one
versus.
now called Saturday AM, Steel Hearts. Like, so many games are now doing tag fighting games where if you asked somebody 5 years ago, no, they would say it was dead. It was nearly non-existent. So for the for basically the idea of like, well, being the do-gooder, being the upright citizen was the status quo, or sorry, no, having the benefit of, let's say, the powers that be, or the people who run stuff, having faith in them. Yeah, that's what we did in the 60s, 70s, and whatnot. But now it's switched around to where having faith in that is now basically the minority, because everybody has become more either conscious minded to a much more information driven or society and whatnot. And this is actually what makes me want to see this current Superman movie, because it is that idealistic hope that is what I like about Superman. The Paragon and sorry, not Paragon, but the optimism and whatnot. The person who just wants to do good and give benefit of doubt to other people and whatnot. That's what makes me. That's what makes Superman my favorite character. Like, I think, as some even people said in like a recent interview, it is not Superman power that makes him interesting. It is the moral dilemma of how much are you going to stick to your conviction and ideas and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think is executed really well in this movie. Superman takes a lot of unnecessary damage because he's trying to be so good in those regards, you know? So for Superman to be such a do-gooder, um, some people are calling it refreshing, right? Some people are saying that, oh, this is like really true to character. Um, but I can say that I might have been part of the problem, man, initially, because uh, did you did you watch the previous Superman movies? As in, did you watch Superman Returns by Bryan Singer, and did you watch the Man of Steel movie by Zack Snyder?
I did not watch those. Those were at times when I realized I was not crazy about
No, no
superhero
problem.
movies.
So I'll recap them briefly.
But I have, but before we recap, I have engaged with Superman medium from the Justice League to how
Yeah,
he was portrayed in Injustice, which is why I'm glad because Injustice One we have my Boy Scout Superman. What Injustice, the Other World, that was the tyrant version, and of course
yeah.
there's now My Adventures with Superman, which oh god did I that if you want to call James Gunn Superman the chicken soup to the soul, My Adventure Superman is like an apple pie made just right.
I think they do complement each other very well. I've only seen a handful of them. Is very enjoyable. What I'll just say very briefly is Superman Returns was so much of a love letter to the very first two Superman movies by Richard Donner that just for the nostalgia and spectacle, people might have enjoyed it. And Brandon Routh had no issues with this portrayal from my stance, right? I think the script itself, by trying to honor the lore from the first two movies so much, dude, it was boring. Okay. Like that was like the biggest problem with it. And I don't mean just like you need a bunch of zip zap zooming around, like holding people's attention spans because we get bored too easily. It was just very kind of dry. So I was one of those people that said, you know what, Superman's boring. Like I enjoyed Justice League. I think that's like a fine interpretation from the cartoons. You know, Justice League Superman even more entertaining than Superman's cartoon from the '90s. That I was clamoring for. Yeah, gritty reboot. You know, and I will say that whatever criticism you want to have about Zack Snyder, and maybe Zack Snyder's take is, you know, just not what Superman's supposed to be like as far as choreography and like iconography. Like he nailed a lot of the cinematography in that way. There's some stupid scenes in Man of Steel, right? But there's truly some amazing battle scenes as well. Like you get some of your Dragon Ball Z fix through those movies. You also get man, like when he's fighting Zod, and I believe the character's name is Faora, like the way he handles super speed, when I saw that scene in movie theaters, I said, oh my God, dude, what are they going to be able to do with the Flash? Because this is like kind of like the model and layout of how you would feel super speed, not just like the super slow mo that we're kind of used to, not like the Quicksilver slow mo take that we've seen in the X-Men films, even though that's really, really cool. But you know, he had his take, and it was like very very dark, and like you know how things panned out with the Justice League movies and Batman versus Superman and all that. That I think for all the Snyder Bros who have been like clamoring and like hating on James Gunn just because he's not Zack Snyder, I think it's like a lose lose situation because oh how dare you take Superman in this direction. Well, even if James Gunn tried to honor the interpretation that Zack Snyder had set up, because he's not Zack Snyder, then they could just easily call him out for being a cheap imitation, you know? So I think the way he did this here, very refreshing, very honoring, very much honoring the do-gooder spirit, just having a lot of heart and also feeling like a comic book movie, I think.
Oh, okay, they
Like
have a lot of characters on screen, right?
so James Gunn from the Guardians of the Galaxy, like, he juggles a lot of characters, in my opinion, really, really well. Like some people might complain that he moves along too quickly, but I think that's actually like a misunderstanding and misinterpretation for people who actually want the hand holding of an origin story. He doesn't really do that. In fact, in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, he didn't give like the origin for Rocket Raccoon until the third movie, you know? So it's not like very linear in type of regard. But I think the exploration of Superman's powers just as good as that Man of Steel fight scene that I was talking about, because like you see the whole range of other stuff. You see the heat vision, you see the ice breath being handled in a very creative. I will say that James Gunn, he has this association of being goofy, which is true. But dude, there is like some gross stuff that happens in this movie. Also, Keobastein, did you ever watch the Batman Beyond cartoon?
Absolutely, definitely going much out. I watched the Batman Beyond, and actually, there's one content creator named I think Serum Lake who does deep dive on character analysis and whatnot. And the Batman Beyond, like, I just for me, I thought it was peak because it was futuristic. So I love futuristic because I love Star Wars. I love Mega Man. So it was Batman futuristic. I just thought that concept alone was good enough. But now I come back as an adult and I don't need any futuristic. It's just good writing. Oh, the writing on Batman Beyond is really good. Actually, it's more noir at times than maybe even some of the Batman content we get, because I do like my detective story. Terry McGinnis is actually a very
He's a man.
good detective, and Batman Beyond shows that. It wasn't
Yeah.
just, gadget and action, which it did have, but there was detective work involved and whatnot.
I think we'll have to gush even further about Batman other cartoons another time. But I just wanted to reference Batman Beyond because in that show there was a villain, Ink, who you could say is kind of like a spin off of Clayface, maybe.
Yeah,
But
I'm aware of that. Yeah, and the scenes of what they did with that. Yeah,
the way that she fought, the way she would just like shove herself down people's throats, to me is like really disturbing.
that is disturbing because that's disturbing because you're losing your ability to breathe and whatnot.
They do that in this Superman, and I again like I saw plenty of messed up stuff when I was a kid, that I probably shouldn't have seen at the age that I saw it. But I'm not even saying like James Gunn is calling Superman like a kids movie or anything like that, but just to see that kind of gross outness caught me off guard, and I just want to point that out to other people in case they're disturbed by that kind of stuff as well.
Okay, well, hopefully people who have opportunity to see that can, either approach that with some either lividity or maybe James Gunn will take that to heart and maybe keep it on a download. I'm not really sure which will be the appropriate thing. But actually, going back to something about Zack Snyder. So, one, kid will not take away his cinematography skills because he does make things pop and action. If you want to keep your eyes on the screen, he can absolutely do that. Just his writing, or this writing is the issue. The characterization is the issue I take with Zack Snyder stuff because I have seen the Transformer things and whatnot, and I mean, well, actually, I'll say it. How Zack Snyder handled women is not very personally tasteful either. Either because
Right.
how he himself either views them or how he thinks people views women and whatnot. And condolences to Megan Fox for having to basically deal with that and now have her image be solely based off desirability and whatnot. So, condolences to her for having to deal with that type of minefield. But I wasn't crazy about Zack Snyder's Superman. I mean, mostly I was happy like, oh, we got more Superman content. But because I wasn't really into movies that much, I just kind of like, I'll see it eventually. Like the last movie I ever saw when I was in the theater, besides I did see John Wick, which even with that friend, I'm like, yeah, this just kind of glorification of killing. Like I couldn't get personally behind John Wick as a character because is he doing cool things? I guess I could say if you want to see kinetic action, cool, but his whole reason of, well, people hurt me, so I'm going to hurt them back, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, John Wick is a weird thing because I'm sort of there with you where I've probably seen more movies. Like I think for me,
I don't blame John Wick for being a person who wants to react to how things happen to him, but we have his mentors and friends saying, hey, you're going down a destructive path and you're causing issue. And he doesn't care until someone actually gets hurt. Someone till he loses a friend, and now he's like, all right, I'm gonna make up by sacrificing myself. And it's like it's kind of like a hollow gesture. And thankfully, some people call him out. It's like if you're actually gonna repent, then stop what you're doing.
Yeah,
Which
I'm not going to call those movies childish. What I will say is, I think those movies would have hit for me if I was still in junior high. Because like when I was in junior high, that was kind of like the stance of like, yeah, grittier is cooler, like more violent, more bloody, more action, all that stuff. And now that I see it, I'm older. It's another one. You know, like the routine I had of like man, from coming back to Japan, coming back from Japan until like 2016, 2017, like I saw a movie just about like every single month in the theater, right? And then it got to the point of, I think it kind of correlates with the rise of the Fast and Furious movie. Why am I fighting the crowd? Why am I dealing with like unruly or these kinds of movies? Again, no problem for people who enjoy them. You like what you like. Like I'm not judging that. It was just like this routine that was like so habitual for me, that was so regular. I couldn't understand why I was doing it myself. You know, when it didn't register the same amount of joy and enjoyment from it. Again, like the John Wick movies, they're totally fine. I think John Wick 2 is probably my favorite out of them. But even then, it's just like I'm I probably would have enjoyed these a lot more at a different point in time. Likewise, to circle it back to Superman, you know, in the Zack Snyder heyday, I don't know if I would have been able to appreciate the James Gunn version of Superman if it had come back out then. I wonder if we kind of needed this cycle, which kind of ties into that punk rock comment that Clark makes in the film, where things go around, where it's kind of the movie that not everybody, but a lot of people needed for a ray of hope in these current times.
I do think that there's something that people underestimate about the power of movies and how things kind of happen in history and cycle repeating itself. Like for example, we like animated movies, correct? We
Yeah.
all like our animated movies. Some of the strongest animated movies happen due to the world climate. Like China made their first animation movie, Princess Iron Fan, when it was basically from World War II. And this was before, Japan animation was a thing, but they took notice from, oh, Princess Iron Fan. That's a movie about, well, essentially Princess Iron Fan helping Sun Wukong from the Journey to the West story and a British version of that, which was a commentary about helping onto neighbors because of what they were experiencing. And then finally, after World War II, when, well, one of the godfathers of animation, Tezuka, I believe his name is Tezuka. I
Hmm.
may be
The
butchering that name.
Atom Boy creator.
Yeah, Adam Boy Career. Like he got inspired by Princess Iron Fan, and well, then he eventually went on to eventually make Astro Boy. Astro Boy wasn't his first thing, but he delved into medium about storytelling with animation because he wanted to resonate, good feelings. Because after the Hiroshima bomb, and there was definitely some Japanese people who were still like imperialistic pride of Japan. Others like, can we actually reflect what we did and make the world not see us as bad guys anymore? And Tezuka was on that, that latter stance of, you know, showing more love and consciousness towards people as a whole. So when you look at Superman and Superman basically becoming what it is, or at least this James Gunn Superman, I'm not really surprised that this is essentially happening because this is just the nature of things. People will make products, or storytellers, our storytellers will make products, or not even really product, but rather they'll use that platform or opportunity to speak or say something that currently resonates with them and whatnot. And even though I have not seen Superman James Gunn, it seems the thing that he resonate is the fact of goodness and kindness of man of all kind, just wanting to help people, and also, well, I'll say what it means also to be in a relationship with somebody. Because, I mean, as someone who's in currently a healthy relationship with their partner, I don't even need to say healthy, but I just said that I'm in a relationship with my partner, and one of the reasons it is a healthy relationship because me and her are having back and forth. It's not just being stuck on the honeymoon of having good times and whatnot. We have a lot of great times, which is why things are very good with her and me and her together. But I have been big in audiobooks. Like that's a medium I've been consuming a lot more of. I've been wanting more audiobooks because I made the assumption that books probably have better story writing than currently movies and television shows because they focus so much on the visual and presentation. So I made the foolish decision thinking that books will have much more in-depth storytelling and writing. And because I wanted romance stories, I was exploring a lot of romance book. And let me tell you right now, there's not a lot about heart to heart. There is just my way of life is the better way of life. I'm helping you, so just follow my lead. Or the other person is just in such a disempowered state. Like there's too much power dynamic relationship of where someone just has more power over the other. Thus, that's how our relationship just blossomed. Oh, I'm in a vulnerable state, but you didn't take advantage of me. I'm happy about that. Instead of just two people just meeting each other eye to eye. Did that make any sense so far?
Yeah, like there's a surprising lack of depth with a lot of these characters, and there's maybe not the traditional usage of weird type of objectification of the relationship dynamics where yeah they either lack agency or they're just merely an accessory. And I totally get what you mean where you wouldn't expect that from book writing necessarily. The problem is like the ocean of books that are out there, even though there are like higher
Oh,
quality
no,
things,
no,
there's just
you're
like
absolutely right. Yeah, like
so much filth that's out there. Because
yeah.
I thought originally you were going to talk about how much butt is there, which there is, but that's
Well,
not what you're talking about. You're talking about just like the
no. Actually, if we want to talk about comic book wise, I mean, I haven't been into comic. Actually, no, I've been in a comic book. Like the one comic book that I did like that was kind of on relationship, but I'm gonna say more webtoon is called Lore Olympus. Now that has definitely gotten some controversy. 'Cause I know some people feel like it's apparently just like 50 Shades of Grey, but just a little more comical. But for me, besides the presentation of the characters, and I guess it's a modern reinterpretation of the Greek Olympic mythos, the thing I do like is these are characters who, well, one, I like medium or stories where adult characters can have fun and have childlike. Yes, I do like the adult characters who can be either stoic or the guardian protector. Like I do like stories like that. But I like when even people who are 20 plus can still have moments of giddy, happiness, shyness, and all other range of emotions. Right now, it just seems like a lot of times they don't think adults can be like that, which is disappointing. So, Lore Olympus, as a comic book or webtoon, they explore basically this version of Hades Persephone where they are discussive. I mean, if I may, maybe trigger warning, but in Lore Olympus, there is a discussion of how Persephone basically did experience SA scenario with another person, and while Hades like, all right, I'm going to take care of that, she actually wants to take care of it on her own way, less because she can't do it, but it's rather if someone else takes care of it and I don't let that person know what they did to me, then I give them the power of hold that they affected my life. And I don't want them to have that power hold over me and whatnot. So she still had the support of someone wanting to basically protect and take care of her, but she didn't want to just stop with, okay, I want to make sure I'm not in harm's way. She rather, no, I don't want the experience to define my life. So I'm going to personally approach it on my own manner and tones that I see fit. And I felt that was a very strong discussion, sorry, very powerful discussion to have because, I mean, yes, there are definitely cases where some people will just need someone else to help them up, but how should I even say this? I'm not going to say I'm in the camp of righteous fury, if anything, but I am in the camp of if someone feels they need to take the liberty to address the situation on their own, not because you don't want to support them, but because they know what they want to do. We're just the outsiders. We're there, but we're just the outsider. Like, even my partner, I don't know what she thinks and feels about scenarios. I can only make a gleam of it, which is why I asked her, tell her, hey, whatever you think and feel, Let me know what you think and feel about the scenario, whether it's Righteous Fury, Indonesia, or other things and whatnot. But to get back to it, yeah, but that has been the most, I'd say, if anything, close to mainstream webtoon comic that I felt that handled romance in a much more ethical and tactful manner and whatnot, personally, in my opinion, and whatnot in a
I
comic
mean,
book form.
hearing you say all that, man, I think you will really then enjoy Lois and Clark's relationship in this latest Superman. Like, because for me, I'll be honest, like, I would like them to get along more. Like, the arguing that they have actually
Well,
really
then,
uncomfortable for me to
well,
see.
then,
But Lois has agency. She's not a damsel in distress. She has strong opinions, and what you were saying with Hades and Persephone right there, like I think some of that will ring true with this dynamic. So you should be all set on.
well, I did get my fill of that with my Adventures with Superman show because that's basically what they do explore. I mean, one, I do like the fact of how both characters kind of maintain some of their characteristics intact. Like, or better yet, Superman of sorry, Clark Kent and Superman do look like completely different characters. Like, I do like that how Superman is much more confident and stoic, while Clark Kent is a bit more sheepish and shyish and whatnot. So it makes even the believability of their two different characters kind of much more sorry, suspicious of disbelief. But then, like I said, we do focus more or less on Lois Lane and Clark and how they are feeling each other. So if you really like the scene from James Gunn with Lois Lane and Clark, I have not seen it yet, but it's definitely going to be the highlight scene that I want to see. Then My Adventure Superman animated show, if you can deal with some of the comedy, which I do love the comedy, then you're really going to enjoy those scenes and dynamics as well and whatnot. Um, I mean, actually, I really love what they did with Brainiac. I love how they made Brainiac a very egotistical character, but you're not going any further than that. Keep an eye on the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, no. So I was watching that as well because I know the point of this wasn't to talk you in to go see the movie, and I think you will catch it eventually whenever it's convenient for you. But is there any other questions you had about James Gunn's movie that maybe I could answer before we close out?
Let me see, because I think there was one on the top of my tongue. Um, People apparently really love how Mr. Terrific and Hawk Girl was handled, but instead of those characters, some people say they hate the motivation of Lex Luthor because they felt like 'cause it was about real estate. Sorry, like I just when I first like think about it, like, oh well, Lex Luthor just hates Superman and he has a big ego, so that's just a thing. But someone had made an interesting comment, or rather, sorry, one video I saw has like, the thing that Lex Luthor has always been about business opportunities, and this movie is basically always him trying to take advantage of even a bigger business opportunity and whatnot. And some
So
people, go ahead.
I was gonna say like that criticism of Lex isn't new, and I feel like out of all the movies that rung true the most was those first two Richard Donner movies, and then by de facto nature, the Superman Returns movie by Bryan Singer, because like it's supposed to be the same Lex Luthor essentially, and the Superman Returns Lex Luthor was very much about like a real estate scheme. Okay, this here. I mean, this Lex is a maniac. He's very self. He's admittedly very insecure. You could call him xenophobic. Also, I don't think the real estate thing applies to him here. There's an angle. There's a power dynamic. There's like a grab for territory for sure, but not in like the real estate get more money business type of way. I don't think that I think
Oh,
if that was
okay.
like your interpretation from it watching this, then
This is
they
what
missed out.
someone else had said, so I might need to go back to that video of what they said about it. But okay, so
A
definitely
lot of people have said
that.
this Lex is pretty cruel though.
Well,
He's
a lot of people kept saying petty, but I like the term that you just said, a megalomaniac. That
he
definitely is
is.
catching my interest because that is something that now when you say that out loud, I can associate Lex Luthor with a megalomaniac personally.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of whether it's by choice or kind of some of these themes are just going to be universal and timeless in a lot of ways, that ring true to like current politics. So not so much a trigger warning, but like for people who really want to go into movies as an escape from real life, they might be a little bit surprised where it's like, oh shit, like this stuff is happening on like the screen too. So I just want to put it out there. I mean, it's
It
kind of obvious
is
from when you see the trailer, so it's not going to be a
from
surprise.
like the whole concept of we use these things for escapism. I use them as time wasters, less so about escapism. Not because they can't do that, but I'm just always in the fact of like, how can we escape something when the people who are making it are doing it because it is about the world they live in. It's about what they're currently experiencing and whatnot. It always kind of. I mean, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any form of escapism, but if someone is telling me a story, how did they come up with that story? Either due to real life experiences or their imagination, but a lot of times that imagination and real life experience is what help culminates the things they're saying. I mean, or how about it? People keep saying they want their characters to feel real, not cartoonish, either villain or heroic, but how do you not make them, I guess, cartoonishly out of whack? Well, you gotta throw realism in there. So that's always been like a weird thing of like, I want to escape, but then I want realism. Like, I don't know if you can have both of that, or if there's a part that did both. I'm not familiar with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. 1 second here. Yeah, Keobastein. I'm just trying to mute the mic. The cat's being 1 minute.
No problem. Hopefully they're okay.
Yeah, he's okay. He's just using the litter box and he's noisy as heck. So I'm just trying to make sure, like, I don't want us to be like in the middle of like something riveting and you hear flying everywhere. So he's definitely taking his time, and my girlfriend doing it. But just another minute here, por favor.
Not a problem.
Okay, what you were just saying about how can you have like sincerity without taking some bits of realism? I totally agree with you, and I think it's, to the credit of James Gunn again with like his writing. You know, like one criticism of Marvel movies, even if you haven't seen a lot, you're probably well aware of like quote unquote Marvel brand of humor where they don't let serious moments sit because like they always do a quip to like undercut the tension and like the seriousness of the scenes. Like there is humor in the Superman movie. I don't think he ever undercuts anything by a joke. But maybe something to say is like there's some like really tense scenes and it's not so much that he skips ahead too quickly, but there's no joke that's after, but he does have to kind of like move the plot along. So it'll be usually like a transition into another scene or a jump cut to something else. There's no joke to make light of like what just happened, but yeah, I think it's just the pacing might be too fast for some people. I've seen some criticism that oh, like I wish you would have just taken out some characters because like, there's so much that's going on. But I think that's that default nature where people want their hand held a little bit more. They would want an origin movie, which I still don't think is like the way to go. But I think if you're familiar with comic book medium, so animated shows like we just talked about, webtoons or just actual comics, the pacing shouldn't be an issue. I give him a lot of props for establishing this new world and universe with a single film right here without making an origin story.
I definitely have been a fan of shows that, or like medium that doesn't dwell too much on the origins. And I have seen people say how they wish the stories are going too fast, which maybe, sorry, miss me being another pedantic person. You're coming to a movie where you only have an hour to an hour, 2 hours, sometimes maybe 3 hour long run time. You're not going to be able to give everything its like due time, and that's something that I think people have to meet movies on this term. You're not going to focus on everything in due time. Like, actually, the latest movie that I watched, K-pop Demon Hunter. I know some people
Mm.
are like, oh man, I wish we would got some more info on this or that character and whatnot. And I'm sitting here like, but the story is about this current thing. Yes, maybe we
Yeah,
could, theory craft other stuff, and save that for the back of your mind, or
yeah,
even for your fanficking. But let's focus on what the story is telling, which they did stay on that track. They didn't go and try to do ultimate everything. No, they're still on track of this is the current conflict and scenario focusing on, and we give a resolution to that conflict and scenario and whatnot. But this is why I also always haven't been the biggest fan of movie, because I do like having those context and details if they can afford to give it to me, which is why I like shows, because shows tends to
right. You have more
give you that,
breathing room. You get to
yeah, more breathing
establish
too.
exactly.
But at the same time, there are definitely shows that also could just meander or not get to the point or do too much,
Yeah.
and so there's no one side is better. But K-pop Demon Hunter showed me that yeah, they did what they could with the limited time frame and they made it work. And it looks like it's also the same thing with James Gunn, because they basically take the fact that we don't need to give you an origin, or rather they give an origin, but it's like, all right, here's the thing about Superman, 2 minutes about what Superman is. All right, now to the movie. Because the latest movie that did that I enjoyed was the 2007 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, the CGI one
Hmm.
that made. Not the It was before Zack. Is this Zack Snyder? The Zack Snyder did.
Uh, I I don't think it was Zack
No, no, no,
Snyder,
not
but
Zack Snyder. No, no, Michael Bay. Michael Bay. It was before
yeah,
Michael Bay Ninja Turtle and before the Ninja Turtle that just came out. That's also 3D. This is the
yeah,
one that's like 2007 during the, let's say, Nintendo
Nickelodeon.
Wii, um,
Yeah.
that type of era. And the thing I like is basically they just gave a little monologue of these are brothers. They just finished their foe Shredder, and I would just move on to the story and whatnot. Now again, if you're not familiar with Ninja Turtles, you're just basically, so we just take it for the ride. We don't get any detail, and the story's like, yeah, just take what we're giving you. And there are been great mediums that have done that. Like I'm not sure if you heard, but have you ever heard of an anime called Legend of the Galactic Hero?
It. I know the name, but I couldn't tell
Okay, well in that
stuff.
one, like they when I finally did get anime adaptation, they started from the middle of the book.
Hmm.
So there's so much stuff that you don't know about, but they get people caught up to like, well, this is the current conflict of this arc. You don't need. I'm not gonna say that you don't need, but rather they get you caught up to the speed of what characters are doing. Did they explain how they got there? They do tidbits of that, but it's like now we're already going with the story, so that pacing and whatnot. So to hear that Superman basically takes that like we're just already doing like these characters are already established, they're already doing their thing. We're just following where this journey is going. I am a fan of that practice personally when it comes to longer than IP. And like you said, like some people just really need that hand holding. Like there's some part where people need hand holding. Second part is there are just things that you can't just infer or quote subtlety that some people just don't want to do that. They're like, well, can you just tell me exactly what it is? No,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think like those type of expectations, like maybe this is a summary here at the end. Like if you have some sort of like resentment or disdain or like you're ready to just like hate this movie, I don't know if this movie is enough to win you because I just don't know where your hate is coming from, you know? And maybe that's something that that hypothetical person just has to like work out on to get help. But for anybody who has any kind of slight interest, even a casual fan, even people who don't really care for superhero movies that much, it is still very much a comic book film. But because of the sincerity, the heart, the actual character moments, I think it has a whole lot to offer. And it's very refreshing and nice in that sense. So I do have a big bias. Like as soon as the first trailer came out, I knew that I was going to like this movie, and it matched that and exceeded even more in like some cases. So
Seeing the
I definitely have
colors
that
definitely
bias.
did for me. Like seeing all the colors, like the actual bright
Yeah,
color. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I guess we're gonna go ahead and basically wrap this up because it sounded like you had a great time with the movie. I can tell right now, if you did enjoy the Lois Lane and Superman, sorry, Lois Lane and Clark Kent moments, you get a good fair bit of that in My Adventure with Superman. And if I can, maybe somewhat spoily, can I speak on a little spoiler nature of My Adventure with Superman?
Let's hear that. Take us home with that spoiler.
So now I don't know if it's so much of a show, but basically, like the heart to heart, like Lois gets to eventually see Clark Kent's parents, Ma and Pa Kent, and basically we get a visual storytelling of why Clark is so shy. It's not because he didn't have, you know, jovial experience or emotions, but when he did got his power, first he was excited about his power, but then he saw how nobody else has it, and because nobody else has it, it made him feel ostracized, and because he didn't understand. Oh, actually, no. Here's another great. When Clark Kent started having this power, his parents revealed to him, "Okay, you're not our real son. You came from an alien race." But this is when he's like maybe 12 years old. So they show him his spaceship. The spaceship activates a hologram of his father, who's speaking in a language he doesn't understand. Had this imposing stature. Basically, they make Zor-El Kent look like a dictator, and that
Mm.
scared Clark Kent so much when younger that he had PTSD over his power. So like a lot of people are like, okay, but Clark now is in Metropolis. He's an adult now. How does he not have control of his power? Because he has PTSD due to essentially seeing his father, seeing hearing a language he doesn't understand, and then not realizing, oh, I'm not like everybody else, and thus that's why he basically acts shy. Cause he's like, I don't understand what it means to be a human because I'm not a human. So I don't know at one point when do I look convincing as a human and when do I look like a Kryptonian and whatnot. And it's like another thing of the how Superman says, I live in a world. Sorry, I live in a world full of cardboard. It's not also just because of the fact that I'm holding back my power. It's rather I don't even know the limits of my power, and that scares me. And oh, it's sorry. Well, the thing is, when you see the picture of how Clark is like around his friends, how he's so distant, it just feels heart wrenching. And Ma Kent basically tells Lois, "I'm glad he had you because even as his mother, my boy stayed distance. Like he couldn't trust himself around his own mother and whatnot." So those they really speak to the humanity of Clark Kent and My Adventures with Superman. So if you want those scenes, I can't recommend My Adventures with Superman enough. And season 2 also goes, oh man, like they show the emotional vulnerability of both Clark Kent and Supergirl. Like yes, these are basically demigod people, but a mind is still a mind. A heart is still a heart. And the villains know to take advantage of that.
Mm.
So yeah,
Great.
with that said, I think that'll definitely be my recommendation for My Adventure with Superman. And just as CommDao, you say the James Gunn Superman, I really want some chicken soup in my soul personally.
Yeah, I look forward to whenever you catch it and watch more episodes of that show. And whenever I get around to watching Demon Hunter, so like, we gotta revisit and trade the experiences.
All right. So I think without further ado, where can they find you again, my good friend?
Yep, you can catch me on Twitch at COMMDAO.
Alrighty, and you can find Keobastein on YouTube, which this should be uploaded soon and whatnot. But without further ado, once again, everybody, thank you for joining us for this little diversion into Superman. Personally, my favorite character, and I hope for some of you people, whether he's your favorite or some of you hate him, maybe you have a little more context as to why some people adore this character. But without further ado, have a great day.
Later.